Alright, so here are the dailies. The AMG, but today let's talk about the Porsche. 718 Porsche GT4. Is it worth it? Let's go through it. All right, so 2020 Porsche GT4. This is a 718 model. They had one other model back in 2016. Honestly, kind of slight subtle differences, but like for Porsche owners, that's really all it's about, is the small little things. I've had this for a year now, a year and a month, and I put a little over 18,000. I bought it at 6,000 miles. It's got 22,000 miles. So what is that? Like 16,000 miles in a year. And here's kind of the thoughts on it. I'm gonna cover a few things. I'm gonna cover the specs on this specific car, some of the stuff that I've had to replace or just like maintenance stuff over the year, some of the mods. I've done only 2 mods on this thing. I haven't done a ton. So 2 mods, a bit of the driving experience, a bit of the footage on like the POV and kind of what it's like just owning it, and then I'll kind of recap. Real quick, guys, just want to show the brand my brother and I started. Got high rev detailing. It's microfiber towel. Basically just need one of these towels just to dry the entire car. Super dope. Check it out. I'll put the link below. As you can see, I got a ton of these just laying around. All right, so let's go through some of the specs here. So obviously it's black. Can't see shit here. I don't know. I think the red is an option. Man, again, in Porsche, everything's an option. The other option is, this is on Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s. I think the default is Pilot Sports. Cup 2s is just supposed to be a bit better for the track. That I never do. The other option in here is the fire extinguisher. This is a cool little thing that like, it's one of those things that I will never use because again, I don't go to the track. But it's just like the coolest thing ever. So we got the red brakes, which again, I think everything is an option for that. We got the fire extinguisher. It is a manual. So that is another thing that, again, I wasn't necessarily picky on, but I love that I got it. The biggest thing here is the carbon bucket seats. This was a non-negotiable for me. These bucket seats are by far my favorite of any of the manufacturers. Not adjustable whatsoever. So like these are pretty stuck. It just looks so fucking cool from the back. I hate that like you can't really see the back because right, it doesn't work that way. But like this thing just goes forward and back. And that's pretty much it. I will say, again, I daily the car, so it's not that comfortable. I start getting some serious like back pain when I drive the hell out of this car. And then after about an hour or so, you just get tired of it really. But I love the spec. I wasn't picky on the paint. Ideally, I think I would have wanted like a flashier color, but this kind of just worked out with the price and then kind of the bucket seats. So, can't complain. It does look fucking dope. The one thing I will say, I remember when I got it, is this wing is a lot bigger than it looks like in camera. In camera, it kind of looks tiny. And then you're actually in it and it's really not. It's actually pretty big. So, got the cool view there. Again, this thing, from a spec perspective, the only thing I wish I would have had, actually, let me point this out real quick, are the headlights. Porsche has, these are the ones by default. They have like these, they're called like xenon, I forget what they're called specifically, but like They got like these 4 running time daylights. It's like these 4 lights, these 4 prong looking things that just look fucking cool. That's like my favorite thing. But the only models I was able to find with that were all PDK, and they were all out of the country, and those are way higher price. I think those were like at 150 or something like that. I almost bought. So this one ran me 132,000 with the current specs. Again, like, this one isn't really that specced out. Very light. The other thing it does have is like the silver stitching. Oh, and then also the Alcantara on here. Some of them have leather, which Alcantara looks better, but it's hard to maintain, like especially with actually using it. It's a bit of a pain to actually keep it looking nice, but it is what it is, you know? So yeah, I almost got a different one like 3 months earlier. That one was like 150,000, and definitely wouldn't have been a smart move, but I was like really close to pulling it because they had like it was a paint to sample. Everything was specced out in it. The different color tachometer, the different color stitching, the colored seat belts, like everything was specced out, but it was 150 grand. This one was 132 with where it sits. And I was worried that those specs would lose value and I'd lose a ton of that depreciation there. So played it a little safer. I waited out and I found something that was a little lighter spec. In hindsight, do I regret it? Probably not. Again, it's a heavy lift, and sometimes you just don't know what loses value and what doesn't. And one thing about this car that was like a nice side effect is Porsche GTs just don't lose money. And so that was definitely a big thing for me, that I didn't want to lose a ton of money on depreciation for the car, especially because I knew I was going to drive it a lot. So let's get into the next thing. All right, guys, so getting into the car. So I've had the car for a year and a month now, put about 17,000 miles on it. So I bought it at 6,000 or 5,000 something, and I'm at 22.6 thousand miles on it. So I put in a good amount of miles in a single year. I'm going to go a bit through just the specs on this specific car. I'm going to go through some of the issues / maintenance I've kind of had on it. I've only done 2 mods on this car over the past year. I'll cover some of the driving costs, the actual driving experience of it, and really kind of wrap it up. Is it worth it, right? So I'll start off with why I bought the car. Honestly, this is my cliche answer. This has been my dream car since the back when the 2016 model came out. So that was the 981, I believe, model. And I was, what was I? I was like 23 at the time or something like that. What is it worth? 20, no more. I was younger than that. So I was pretty young. Definitely couldn't afford the car, but like when I saw the car, you know, I did what everyone does. You go down all the YouTube videos and stuff like that, and like I fell in love with the car. And I think that was when I started becoming like a huge Porsche fanatic. At the time, I didn't really understand what like the Porsche enthusiast is like, such as getting used to these goddamn brakes. But like, it's been a dream car of mine, and I spent so many times, and it's funny because now I get like the Instagram, you know, when they remind you of the stories and stuff like that of busting a U-turn, when, like, you know, 6 years ago, and I remember posting, I see like images posting of like dream car, one day this will be mine, this and this and that, and it's crazy to kind of have it. So like, fast forward, I bought this car when I was 30 years old. Yeah, I was 30, and it feels surreal, kind of like finally getting the dream car. But as far as like the car itself, here's the thing with Porsche, right? It's not the fastest, it's not the flashiest, it's not the best at anything other than potentially driving. And like, it kind of comes down to that. Like, it's different than other cars when it comes to actually driving it. And like this fucking played out slogan of like Porsche, it's about the driving experience. You don't ever really get it until you've driven multiple cars kind of in the price tier. Because when you first drive it, if this is your first expensive car, it's gonna feel amazing. But after you've driven the Lamborghinis, the McLarens, the higher end stuff, and you get into a Porsche, you really kind of get a better understanding of like what they mean by the driver's experience. And it's like just down to like the handling. This one even more so because it's a manual. It's a 6-gear manual, which for me was like a huge selling point on it. I went through the phase where I almost wanted the PDK, but finding the PDK in this car was a bit hard. But I'm super happy I ended up getting the manual because there's just nothing like driving a manual. And again, right off the bat, just because it is a manual, you're not gonna win races, you're not the fastest and stuff like that, just because automatics today are just like so much better than manual cars. But it's been crazy. Like I love everything about this car. I've had some issues where I'm like, but honestly, like I live with it because I understand no car is perfect. It took me months to finally get used to the damn braking sound, and for a long time I thought it was normal. But then like I've driven other carbon ceramic brakes. This doesn't have the rotors as the options for that, but the pads themselves are carbon ceramic, so like that's the issue. And I honestly couldn't complain much about it. There are some things I wish I had on it, which I'll get into just a bit with the specific specs on this car. But let me pull over because I gotta get some gas because this motherfucker eats gas like a motherfucker. And I'll walk a bit through the car itself. All right, getting into some of the issues I've had with the car. So again, I put 17,000 miles, so some things are bound to happen, but really, didn't really have that many problems. The only things I've done, I had a 3-year maintenance done to it. There was a water hose or some sort of hose that had like a rip in it or something. Point is, the hose had to be replaced, which wasn't that bad. Actually, no, it was like $500 for a hose, but that's what you get. Maintenance was like $2,600, and I've replaced out a full set of tires on this thing, which again, that was normal. It did suck because a month later, after I replaced the tires, I got a nail on the sidewall, which meant that I couldn't just patch it, so I had to buy another tire there. I did have a speaker go out. It like blew out like a month into owning the car, but the car is CPO. I think unlimited miles for 3 years, which is insane. That's some crazy warranty. So that got replaced easily, no issues. They just put a new speaker in it. And then the only other issue I had was this window. It stopped doing like the automatic kind of going all the way down. To be fair though, it was my fault. I stuck a GoPro on there on the suction, and I hit the button to put it down, and then it got stuck because I think I fucked up the motor or something. But they just did a reset and turned out fine. So that wasn't even the car's fault. That was on me. So really not that many issues. Again, I think the thing with a lot of these higher end cars is reliability kind of really comes into play. Lamborghini is definitely known for being reliable also. And I think it comes down to like the naturally aspirated engines that is just, there's so many less things that tend to go wrong with these cars. So you can't complain. I've learned to really love naturally aspirated over turbo engines, but separate discussion. So really no issues. Again, I've put 17,000 miles on this car, and they aren't like light miles. They are, I wonder if I can find like my life to date. No, I can't. On average, I get about 9 mpg in this car, and that's like consistent. If I am like going on a rally with other cars, or like I'm having those fun days and really getting crazy, I go down as low as 6 miles per gallon, which is fucking crazy. Like I go through gas on this thing like a motherfucker. It's crazy, but it's kind of the part of owning the car. So really no issues. I couldn't complain. From a reliability standpoint, Porsches are known for being super reliable, and I literally had that experience. So I can't complain. I love it because I really didn't feel like I spent crazy money on something that I shouldn't have. The maintenance stuff and tire stuff, that's to be expected. But out of that, no issues whatsoever. So I'll give Porsche the stamp of reliability there. Next one here is mods. I've only done 2 mods to this car. One mod was my brother for my birthday gave me a catback exhaust. Went with the Fab Speed exhaust. Now, it's a known thing on Porsches, specifically, I don't know if it's GT3s, but I know it's specifically GT4s. The way you really get sound out of these cars is out of the over axle pipes. Out of the over axle pipes and then the exhaust. The over axle pipes have like the bigger mufflers where really there's a lot of restriction with the airflow. But I'm not the one to get like the crazy loudest car, and not a fan because of how much I drive it. So I went with the catback exhaust first. So did that. That definitely opened it up, which was great. Personally, for me, this is enough. Like, it's to the point, like, I went on a car rally once with nothing but Porsches, and it was me and my daughter. We were on the rally for probably an hour. It was like a consistent hour of driving. By the time we got back home, both of us, like, we were like exhausted, like physically exhausted, because it's a mid-engine car, so the engine is right behind you and it gets loud in here. And then with the exhaust, it's just louder. And so when you drive it consistently and aggressively, by the time you turn off the car, like, your ears are kind of ringing, and it's like you kind of go numb for a bit. So physically exhausting. Will I potentially want to swap out those over axles? I'm not sure. I've had the car long enough to the point where I'm already thinking about what I want next. And so I don't really know if it's worth spending, I think it's like $2,000 to buy the over axle pipes from Fab Speed. Another $1,000 probably for the labor. So I'm like $3,000 in on that. I don't really know if it's worth it. I'd want it maybe louder sometimes, especially if I'm only gonna have it for another few months. But as of right now, I'm probably not gonna swap it out. It is what it is. I have heard GT4s with the over axle pipes and the exhaust, they sound like GT3s. It's insane. But I don't think I'm gonna do that just because it doesn't make a ton of sense. The other mod I did is I swapped out the air filters. Again, it being a mid-engine car, you get a lot of the noises right behind you. And I saw that as one of the things that is known, that it's a simple, cheap mod that makes a big difference in the sound inside of the car. And I figured this is when I was gonna get the catback exhaust installed, so I figured let me order it, and I have them do it at the same time anyways. And it takes a lot for you to actually notice the difference. I don't know, the average person probably wouldn't hear, but if it's your car, you definitely will notice it, especially at the higher end revs. You'll hear a lot more of that airflow behind you, which is nice. Out of the box, honestly, I love the way it sounded out of the box. Like OEM, everything stock, sounded good. I definitely do think everyone needs the exhaust. If you're gonna daily, I don't know, it really kind of depends on your threshold. I would consider myself like on a lower end of a threshold when it comes to sound, so I'm okay with it. So take it kind of with a grain of salt, kind of what you want there. But I got one more thing that I'm trying to cover here. The running cost, I just did a separate video on what the total cost was for the car. Again, with everything I've done, everything I've spent for the year of 2024, I spent about, I think it was $35,000 with payments, insurance, and gas, and literally everything to own the car for a year. I was about $34,000, which is crazy. It's a lot of fucking money. But it's what you get. Now, the last part here, and this is really kind of what ultimately it comes down to when you're looking at this car, is like the driver's experience. Like, how much do you love to drive this car? This is not for someone, if you're looking for a fast car, if you're looking for a flashy car, if you're looking for something that is gonna, you know, give you like a wow factor, I think this is not the car for you. This is the car for someone who probably doesn't care about the image, because you're not gonna get much attention versus like the R8s or the McLarens or something else in this price range. Man, even a Corvette C8, I think, just stands out a bit more than this car. So definitely not like an eye grabber. A lot of the people who compliment you on this car are typically just car enthusiasts, where like if you have a McLaren, the average person will compliment you. The only real thing that kind of makes this car stick out in the public eye is the wing and just the sound, because it gets loud. Speed, not the fastest by any means. I've said this 1,000 times. This car is by far the slowest in the price range, and it's not even close. I'm under about 100 horsepower versus any other car. So again, the McLarens, the Corvette C8s, man, even the M3s, the C63s that are half the price of this car, all those cars are pushing at least 100 horsepower more than this car. So you're not winning any races. And especially this one, because it's manual, again, you lose some speed driving a manual versus an automatic car these days. So can't get you there. The reason you will love this car is, one, you like the naturally aspirated, you can rev high, it's great there. Two, it's one of the few cars you can get that's still a manual. There just aren't that many cars, you know, newer, like higher end cars that you can buy that are manual. The only other car in this price range, and it's really the only kind of direct competitor, is the Lotus. I think it's called the Lotus Evora or something like that. That's a supercharged car pushing out about the same horsepower. I believe it's also mid-engine, and it's supposed to be really good with like the driver's experience. So that's the only direct competitor. But manual, you can get a manual in this fucking car. It's crazy. It's like, it's so much fun, especially when you're like going through, just go through a lot of the gears. It's like so much fucking fun. You can't complain. This is literally why someone gets it, is if you want a manual, even if you get the PDK, it's cool because it revs up to a little over 8,000 RPM or at 8,000 RPM, and the sound of a mid-engine car is just different. I think the biggest person who would love something like this is if you are like a track person. If you do like to take your cars to the track, this is definitely a huge one, because from my understanding, this car keeps up with a lot of higher end cars, despite it having such low horsepower, you know, relative to some of the other ones. Because you can carry so much speed into the corners, and it gives you such confidence driving this car, it's just, you can't complain there. Damn. I think we'll wrap it up here. This is, again, I may be biased because I'm a Porsche fanatic, and I know Porsche fanatics are like known for just, we get excited over the smallest fucking things. You know, the new GT3, the new 992.2 GT3 has the smallest differences from the .1, but those things are gonna go for crazy money. They don't lose their value. So like, and it's funny because like all I hear from people who aren't, you don't, not necessarily a Porsche hater, but just someone who doesn't necessarily love Porsches, the main things are like, they're overpriced and they're too slow and they all look the same. And I agree with all three of those things. They're too slow. Again, slowest by their market. Like, you take the GT3 for 200K, 250K, you can get cars that are way faster than that car. So it gives you a different feeling. They all look the same. They fucking do. Literally, they all just kind of look the same when you're getting into the GTs. Even the 911s, you go through all the 911s, they have like 5 different versions of that car, and they all pretty much look the same to the average person. Overpriced. Overpriced, again, relative to the competition, yes. Costs way too much money. But my biggest pushback there, and the reason I'm okay paying the money for a Porsche, is because I don't look at cars in terms of how much money I'm spending on it. I look at cars as in terms of how much money am I going to lose. So really the depreciation, right? And when you take into consideration the depreciation on this car, it's actually a lot less expensive than a lot of the other cars. If you buy a $200,000, $300,000 McLaren versus the $250,000, $270,000 Porsche, that McLaren's going to cost you a lot more money in the long run. And then you add into the fact of reliability. Cars are reliable. Like, you're not going to have any other issues. Now, I'm just going to assume everyone has, you know, warranty off all the cars that we're kind of comparing it to, but still, like, the issue, like, if you have a McLaren that is covered under warranty, but it's fucking in the shop, you know, half the year, that I've heard stories of, that's not that uncommon, then, like, what's the point? I would hate to have to pay the monthly payment, the $2,000-$3,000 a month for a car, and the car's in the shop. It fucking sucks. Plus, you still you pay insurance for it, so you're still paying another $200 on top of that. Like, you know, so I get all three of those things, but honestly, like, it still makes a ton of sense. So, super happy. A year and a month into this car, 17,000 miles into the car, and I literally could not ask for much more. Like, everything I knew I was gonna get, I got more of it, and even the downsides to it, perfectly okay with. My next car, I'm debating between a McLaren 600 LT or a Porsche GT3, a 992 GT3, or a 991.2 GT3 RS. So about the 200K mark is kind of where I'm looking at. I'm leaning towards the Porsche. I really want a McLaren because fucking doors go up, but we'll see how it goes. Let me know if you have any questions. Subscribe, like, do the whole shebang on the car. Appreciate all the love recently, and we'll keep these coming. Peace.